Today we're talking about Tapeworm. Tapeworm is the new fun and weird game of spatial color matching from Ed McMillan and Studio71 Games. The base game is for 2 to 4 players and can be pre-ordered right now off of the Studio71 Games website, which I'll include in the description below. Now let's get to the unboxing. Before us, we have Tapeworm. We've got the core game box, and then we've also got the pink foil special edition that I got from Kickstarter. All of these are sitting on top of these beautiful kind of play mats that I got from Binding of Isaac, the Four Souls game. You can see that it's like kind of multiple play mats stacked on top of each other, but the art's beautiful, so I kind of wanted to show them off. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to be focusing on the pink foil box today, so I'm going to go ahead and take the core game out, the base game, that is. Yeah, so let's take a quick look. The foil effect is really nice and shiny on this box. You've got the 4 different kinds of worms: red, black, white, and pink. On the back, you've got a brief description of the game: a fun and weird game of spatial color matching for 2 to 4 players. Compete to create long and colorful tapeworms. Cut the tapeworm as it grows too long and begin again. Be the first to play all your cards and win. Yeah. So we've got, it's made by Studio71 Games, and you've got Ed McMillan's little signature there. Very cool. It's a beautiful looking box, actually. One thing to pay attention to before we actually crack this open as well is these little pink box card replacements. Doesn't matter what iteration of the game you get, this pink box, the special foil pink box, or the base game, or the Not Safe for Work edition that we're actually not going to cover in this video because even talking about it is super inappropriate. But you're going to want to check out these little revision packs. And basically what they say is, we accidentally included duplicate cards and the mildly not safe for work reference cards in your game. So step 1, replace all of the reference cards with the ones that they provide here, and then take out a couple of cards from the deck itself and replace them with what's in here. You're going to have to do that to some degree for all of these. I think that they maybe have rectified that probably in the release version that you can now pre-order on Studio71 Games, but I'm not 100% sure. If you got this from Kickstarter, definitely pay attention to these. And for me, they were like kind of taped on the outside like this, so it's very possible that they might have come off and like fallen off in the packaging or fallen off in the box. Double check that you have these. There was one for every version of the game. Okay, so let's go ahead and quick pop this open and take a look. First and foremost, these were in a little bit of packaging. It was just some plastic that was stuck to the top like that. So what we've got here is a little bit of art on the actual inside of the box, which I think is great. We've got the little white worm. It looks like a human rib cage or sternum of some sort, with all these little kind of hatching wormies there. We've got the black wormy boy and the white wormy boy. In all, it's just pretty art, pretty typical of what you'd expect from something from Ed McMillan. We have the rulebook here, the Tapeworm rulebook, which is very short. It's very succinct and concise, and it exercises brevity, which I appreciate. We've got some FAQ that you can check out. I'm sure they have that on the website or something, so you'll be able to get these rules in a lot more sources other than just in the box. So check that out if you're interested. We also got this really, really cool poster, which I'm kind of in love with. I want to show you this art just because it's so darn incredible. So check this out. Look at this kind of like high art, high render version of these different kinds of worms. And we've got like this dirt skull thing and the worms all wrapping around it. It's really cool. It's just really, really, really pretty. And then the other side, this is great too. I mean, it's a little bit more kawaii, but it's still very cool. And then right on top, stickers. I am a nut for stickers, man. I love stickers. Always love stickers. So these are right up my alley. And it's just one of each of the types of worms. I thought that was a really cool, nice little addition that got added to the box. I believe that was a stretch goal. So that's cool. That's nice to be greeted by as soon as you open the box. Then you have the card types. This is covered more in the rules, all these different card types, but first and foremost, you've got the ability cards. So these ability cards are actually the characters of the game: Conjoined Worm, Grave Worm, Murder Worm, Peeper Worm, Purge Worm, Psy Worm, Petunia, Minkus, Greg, and Boris. These are an optional addition to the game, and again, we'll cover that more in the rules if you stick around and watch that. But that's one. You've also got the kind of like the rules reminder cards, the little reference cards that you can use, and these are double-sided. Here are the basic instructions, and then you've got like the card effects on one side. Other than that, you've got a series of blank cards, which I find interesting. I assume that these are included to create your own worms if you wanted to, which I always think is neat. I never use them because I just have like a mental block against drawing on on a game that I bought. I know it's silly, but that's just the way I am. But that's a neat little addition that people might like. Here you've got your start tile, and then you've got your basic worm cards, which there are a bajillion of. This is a very, very, very hefty deck. The cardstock feels nice. It's like kind of thick cardboard. It has a good weight to it. The artwork is clean. Again, it's totally on par with what you'd expect from something from Ed McMillan. It's beautifully done. It's beautifully, beautifully done. And then last but not least, we have the Kickstarter promotional Binding of Isaac cards that were included. So it looks like you get a bunch of these really, really beautiful foil cards to be included in your Binding of Isaac 4 Souls base game. So we've got Tapeworm, Pink Proglitid, Tapeworm, Black Proglitid, Red Proglitid, White Proglitid. We've got Rainbow Tapeworm. And then we've also got the 2 extras that were Eden and the Bloat. These are the standard kind of Binding of Isaac card sizes that fit more easily into sleeves than these square ones, which I know some people have a hard time finding sleeves for in bulk. But other than that, everything's of really high quality. The art's great. I'm really happy with how this unboxing went in general. All the little extras really add to it, the little poster as well as the stickers. Even this, and I know it seems silly, but if you take out this little cardboard insert, if you go ahead and check that out, the art is actually different on the top and the bottom of the box. So you've got the white and the black, and then you've got the pink and the red over here, and it's just like different segments of the spine and body, which I think is actually really, really cool. And just like a little bit of flavor that make the overall experience of unboxing this game, or just like having this game sitting on your shelf, a lot nicer. Yeah, so that about does it for the unboxing. Stick around, and we are about to go over the rules of Tapeworm. The rules of Tapeworm are quite simple. Much like in Uno, the player who plays the last card of their hand is then declared the winner. Starting with the basic instructions, we place the start tile down in the middle of the table between all players. This is what the start tile looks like. It'll always have 3 open segments, pink, white, and red. You then shuffle the deck and deal out 5 cards to each player. Players will take turns clockwise, starting with the player that looks most like a worm. You can also randomize this, but for this kind of thing, I tend to like to start the games by using the roll of a die. During each turn, the active player first draws a card from the Tapeworm deck and then plays a card from their hand that matches the color of any open segment on the table. If the card played doesn't end or change color, that player may attach another card to the previous card and repeat this process until they place a card that ends the color sequence or they run out of cards of that color to play. Now, we're going to go ahead and play on white just to take a really quick look at what this might look like. We've got an open segment on white, so I'm going to go ahead and play this card, furthering the color sequence. I'm going to go ahead and play this card, furthering the color sequence, because I didn't terminate it nor did it change color. And then I'm going to play this card, which is a rainbow card, which is actually a wild, which means that we can play it off of any previous color in a color sequence. And we'll actually touch more on the wild cards later. So I'll go ahead and play that. And now we see in my hand, because I have no further white cards, there's nothing else I can do. So this would be the end of my turn. One thing to pay attention to, however, is the card effects. Card effects are illustrated up in the top left-hand corner of these cards. As you can see, we've got Dig, which allows you to draw a card and then discard a card. So you would draw 1 card from the Tapeworm deck, you would take a look at it and take a look at the cards in your hand, decide if you want the one that you've drawn or any in your hand, and then you would discard 1 accordingly. You've also then got Swap, which will allow you to choose a player, look at their hand. You may take a card from it if you wish, but then you also have to give them a card from your hand. So keep in mind, you can opt out of this. You cannot take a card from their hand, but if you do, you have to give them a card from yours, potentially giving up something that you want. You've got Hatch, which forces another player to draw a card, relatively self-explanatory. That's a bad thing, as you want to reduce the number of cards you have in your hand as much as possible, getting closer to victory. Peek, which allows you to draw a card and then put a card from your hand back to the top of the deck. So, sort of like Dig, you would draw this card, go ahead and take a look at it, and then take a look at the cards in your hand, and then you would choose one of them to place back on the top of the deck instead of into the discard pile. You've also got Cut, which allows you to cut a segment that matches the color of the cards and then discard all cards unattached. You may keep playing cards matching the cut color from the segment that was cut. So let's take a very quick look at that. Now, if we've got a white color sequence built up here, right? Much like we did before. We've got a cut card here indicated by the little pair of scissors in the top left-hand corner. I would take this card and I can go ahead and cut all that off to the right. And as you can see, because it's unattached on the right, all of these cards would then be taken out of the sequence, stuck there, and put in discard. And then if I choose to, I would then be able to take other cards that match that color sequence. Because it is a white cut card, I could use white color segments, and then I could go ahead and continue making a sequence based on that color. The last card effect is actually what we call wild, which we touched on briefly earlier, but we're going to cover in more in depth now. The wild will always be a part of these rainbow cards, so these rainbow segments. And what this means is it can be played off of any color sequence. So if we have a white color sequence going and we play this rainbow card, one thing to keep in mind is that this rainbow card, for all intents and purposes, now becomes a white card. Because the card on which it was played was white, this is now a white card, meaning I would no longer be able to take something like this red head and attach it to the bottom of that wild card, even though it looks like I would be able to, because, one more time, for all intents and purposes, this is now a white card, having followed that path. Yeah, so now that we have all these card effects in mind, let's go ahead and play a turn as it would be played appropriately. So the first thing I would do is go ahead and draw a card from the top of the Tapeworm deck. This now brings my hand total to 6. And I still want to play off that white color segment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that there. Because it didn't terminate, I'm going to go ahead and drop this wild card there, making that essentially a white card. And then I would only have one card left normally. It would be this card to place, finishing my turn and my color sequence. However, one thing of note is take a look at this. Up at the top left-hand corner, we've got a dig icon, which means I get to draw a card, and then I get to discard a card from my hand. Now, I drew this, and I definitely want this because this is another white card that I can use in this color sequence. So I'm going to keep that, put that into my hand, and I'm going to take this red worm head that I cannot use currently, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in the discard pile. I'm then going to take this white head that I just drew out of the Tapeworm deck, and I'm going to go ahead and terminate my color sequence with that white head. One thing of note is if you take a look here, you've also got the hatch icon, which forces another player to draw a card, bringing them farther away from victory and bringing me closer. That's the basic gist of it. Those are essentially the rules. There are some advanced rules that I do think we should touch on. First and foremost is rings. Now, whenever a player creates a ring, they are then able to discard 2 additional cards, which is obviously a very good thing and a very powerful tactic. What is a ring, you ask? Well, it's actually pretty simple. It's basically exactly what it sounds like. Whenever you complete a full circle with matching color segments all appropriately lining up, you've created a ring. So, there it is. As you can see, this would be a ring. So we've got our white color segment matching to white color segment, matching to white, to white, to white, and then this final color segment, which is actually a red color segment, that matches as well. And as you can see, this is one long, full, complete ring. That would then allow me to take 2 cards out of my hand and discard those as well as if I wished. One thing to pay attention to, though, is that the way your color sequences terminate is very important, and there are, in fact, illegal moves, 2 to be specific. The first would be if I went ahead and terminated a color sequence like this. Now, even though these are all lined up properly, and you can see that it goes white to white, white to white, you can see that also I've terminated the end of this white color segment with nothing to attach it to. So this would technically be an illegal move. I would be unable to play this. The second way that this would be inappropriate is by matching two disparate colors. So we've got white to white, white to white. This white is trying to connect to this red, so this would be an illegal move. Therefore, I would not be able to play this card because the colors do not match. As far as other advanced gameplay things go, there's only one more of note, and that's the ability deck. Now, the ability deck is actually recommended by Ed McMillan as to not be played with for the first like several rounds until you get a better feel for the game, because it does have the potential to complicate things. But essentially, the ability deck are kind of themed on like these worm characters. So you've got Boris the Black Worm, Greg the Red Worm, Minkus the White Worm, and Petunia the Pink Worm. Then you've also got Conjoined Worm, Grave Worm, Murder Worm, Peeper Worm, Purge Worm, and Psy Worm. These are all very self-explanatory as their effects are listed very specifically on each of the cards themselves. So if we just take a look at Boris here, each time you play a solid black, straight, or curved segment, which is either of these two cards here, you may dig 2. Now, if we recall, dig means you get to draw from the card or draw from the Tapeworm deck and then discard that card or any other card in your hand. You'd be able to do that twice whenever you played a segment that looks anything like this, that are specifically black. There are 4 basic ones. There's the black, the red, the pink, and the white. And then there are the more complicated ones, these ones here, which have slightly more advanced effects, such as the Psy Worm, where at the start of each of your turns, you may choose a player and look at the cards in their hand, essentially always knowing what somebody has in their hand at the beginning of your turn. That's very interesting. These are very, very powerful abilities. What you would do is you would take those, essentially. It would basically serve as your character, and then you would just have that for the whole game, applying the effect whenever appropriate. Again, these are not recommended to be played with for the first few times through the game until you get a better grasp of it, because they do have the potential to complicate things. But for the most part, that is the rules of Tapeworm. That should about do it for the rules. Be sure to check the description for more information, and definitely hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon for alerts on more videos like these. Also, come hang out with us on Twitch where I play games like this, including many others, and I'll see you next time.